And of course, welcome to Ask Us Anything with Johnny Heller, Don Baarns. And today we have a killer guest. Phil is with us, and I'll let Johnny introduce him. And a big thank you because normally we're on Tuesdays, and we really appreciate you showing up here on the Wednesday. Had a family event that I was attending, and happy to be back with you. So next week we'll be back on Tuesday. And Johnny, I know you have had a cold, and the one great thing about you is you never whine except for about this cold. You have been not feeling good the last few days. So how you feeling? Good to see you. Can you say hello so everyone gets to hear that we'll get this over
Yeah,
with right up
here's me
front?
with my cold. I've grown a beard cold, as a matter of fact. That's how bad the cold is. It caused me to grow a beard. It's one of these colds that's going around that lasts. It seems forever. And when you get to be a certain age, you got to be careful if you sneeze that you don't deviate a disc or something. You got to make sure you're sitting in the right place with a lot of backup behind you
And
because
so
the sneezes just knock your head right off your neck.
before you introduce Phil, the question is, because you have a cold, are you able to take off 3 weeks from narrating?
All right, let me introduce Phil, and then we should talk about that because that's a
Okay, because
worthwhile
that's
thing. Let's
okay.
not
Yeah.
let's not let Phil sit around while I talk about my lumbago. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us today the lovely and talented Phil Thron, one of my dear friends, and we're so glad he's a great narrator. We're going to talk about his narrations. He's a great guy, and he's very funny, which will set him up to make him say something funny. Hey, Phil, say something funny. So so we appreciate you coming in today. We really do.
No, I thank you for having me. It's great. I love this. I've watched your show, and it's a lot of fun to be on here. So thank you. I appreciate it. I'm honored.
Let's talk for a second, since Don brought it up, about how to deal with, if you're injured. Let's say you're beheaded in a skiing accident. I think you got to take a little break from narrating. But if you have a cold, it depends. If it sounds like this, you can't do your thing. But if you sound like I sound right now, you can probably. Here's one of the things I do. I had to finish the Blues Brothers. I had to finish it early because I have another thing that's due and it's big. I tend to soften my speech, get a lot more breath support behind it, and soften it, and it tends to work around the sound of the cold. You can't get rid of some of the depth, but if you put some more breath and push your voice forward a little bit and make it a lighter sound, I find it matches your normal sound much better than try to just get around like this. Do you find? Have you ever worked with a cold, Phil, try and get a project done?
I did. I had gotten a cold. I've been really fortunate. I don't even want to jinx it, but I've only missed about 2 days of
Yeah, knock
recording
on phone.
because
Yeah.
right, yeah, knock on phone. And one day it was just so bad. I had actually had, laryngitis. So the day after that, when it was starting to come back, there was no way it was like
Listen how
this.
scratchy you sound just talking about
Yeah,
it, though.
yeah, right. I'm a method actor, Johnny. So went the next day. It was really close, and I was so tight on the deadline that I went and I listened, and I recorded about 10 minutes, and I kind of honestly I kind of fudged. I went, yeah, that sounds good. Okay, we're good to go.
Yeah.
And but like yourself, that's exactly right. By not pushing yourself and just kind of holding it back a little bit. But you do have to match what you did, and I had done half the book already.
Yeah.
So I at least had to have some chest to it.
Don, are there things that a tech guy can do to help the actor sound closer to what he did? Is there tech stuff you could do to fix that and make it sound better?
Nope. We don't even. I don't take this wrong.
That's the best Don Baarns answer.
Nope, you're screwed. You're screwed.
First off,
thanks for that in-depth report from Don Baarns. Back to our.
It's like okay. I have had people come. I can match a background, but I can't match your voice. I can re-EQ. There is some things we could do around the edges, but my first thought is no. It's just not. Do not assume that we're going to fix that in post. Yeah. Assume that you're going to get what you get. And I know my wife treats it like a character voice, and then she tries to find her normal voice within the cold and treats it as, same as you two could both sound like 20 other voices should you choose to because of your training and background. And she just kind of thinks of it as, okay, I'm starting from a different spot, but I still now need to do, now I'm doing the character voice, which is me, to match my voice. And it doesn't always work. And there's sometimes where I just go, hey, be quiet and take a day off.
And here's the thing: if it's not working, because if I listen to how I finish the day before, and usually it's a little, it lacks some of the energy that you started with toward the end of the day. So you can, because a cold generally saps some energy, you're kind of in that place. You can pick up where you left off, and it doesn't change. However, if you listen, you've got to be discerning enough to say this matches, it'll work, it's good, the listener will like it, because you're what you have to do is give a compelling read and an entertaining read.
Right.
If in fact you're not sounding, it just doesn't match, you just got to say, okay, I can't right now.
Yeah.
And you just, you just can't. You have your tea and you relax, you get your sleep, and you let your publisher know
Right.
if it's going to affect your deadline dates. Listen, because know it or not, and don't take advantage of this knowledge, but most, unless like this book Joanna and I have coming up, we're doing together, it's a tight deadline, but most books, they build in some time for things like, narrator colds or
decapitation.
Or anything could delay the thing. So there are some, but just let them know that, hey, it's due on the 5th. I've got a cold. I'll shoot for the 7th or the 8th as soon as I can, but I can't do it now because I don't sound. Because no one wants it to sound shitty. That's the whole point.
No.
Is getting sorry, you got picked because of who you sound, how you sound, what you sound like. You can't fake it.
And it is supposed to sound like you sat down and read the whole book straight through. So there should be that consistency, and you're going to get changes back. You're going to end up doing that again anyway.
It sounded like somebody new came in on chapter, on these 15 chapters.
Who recorded for you? Yeah.
So how long how long before you, like, how many days, if you have a schedule running and you miss a couple days, at what point do you actually tell your publisher? Obviously, I'm not going to go tell them, hey, I have a cold. It's only when it affects my schedule for a couple days and I don't feel like the match is good, then I'm starting to give them a heads up that, hey, I may need a couple extra days because I was sick. At what point do you do that?
I think you do it at the point you may not be on time with your deadline. The Blues Brothers, for example, was due February 6th. I turned it in 3 days ago. I'm always ahead if I can be. That was far ahead because I have other projects that just came up that I really wanted to do. In fact, I'm going to do, I'll tell you an exciting thing. I'm doing Richard III.
The play?
It's a Baarns-Audiobook thing. It's an accessible Shakespeare. I got called, and I don't know the whole story. I think somebody had to drop out of a multicast thing, and it's not Richard III Shakespeare. It's been modernized, and they don't want a British sound or anything, which is really unfortunate. But they did a pretty good job. So I'm taking a day to do that.
Is it multicast, Johnny?
Yeah.
Or you're just okay.
Multicast, but everybody else has been whoever was Richard. I don't know the whole story. Maybe I'm not even supposed to talk about it. I don't know, but it's too late now. Whoever it was, it couldn't finish or something. So I'm a replacement Richard.
Oh, wow.
I'm a new hump. So
so you
I'm
were not the
same as the old hump.
Yeah, I'm the replacement hump. So I'm gonna come in and but so it's everything else is done. So I'm gonna go and respond to no one. Yeah.
But still, that's exciting. That's a great book.
Yeah, it's quite exciting. So I'm doing that, and then we got this Village Voice book that from Dreamscape. It's about the history of the Village Voice. It's like 600 pages. The advantage is, as I said, it's got like a Norman Mailer and Andy Warhol, and it just says their name. Here's Norman Mailer, and there's a paragraph. Andy Warhol in a paragraph. So if my voice is a little like this, I'm not going to do an impersonation of Warhol or Mailer or anything.
No.
But so it doesn't have to sound dead on because I haven't started really. It could just be different sounds. So there's an advantage to this one. But if it's a regular book, you need to let your publisher know as soon as it's going to affect the deadline. I mean, as soon as you know that your deadline has been affected, you have to tell them.
Yeah. If you can project out and go, oh yeah, I'm not gonna make this, then. But you might, like you say, you build in time sometimes, and you do have the time. You say, you know what, I'm gonna have to work a little extra tomorrow night. The next night I can catch this up. But otherwise, you do have to say something.
Phil, what are you working on now?
I'm actually working on a nonfiction about Cloverfield and cinema in post 9/11. And it's actually really interesting, and I do love the movie. It is challenging because at the beginning he says, this monograph. So a lot of it is very clinical. But it is interesting, and I love the movie. I've seen it several times, and of course I just watched it again this weekend to get used to it again.
Yeah,
And
I
then
never saw it.
oh, you don't like that stuff. That's right.
Is it horror?
Yeah, it is. It's a giant creature in Manhattan, and it has, it has echoes of 9/11 in it. So it was made like 8 years after 9/11. So there's an immediacy to it that it was really powerful. I saw it in the movie theater and came out like, wow, holy cow, that was really something.
Is it one of those bloody, gory things
Not
where
at all. Not at all. It's
like
not
Saw
about blood and
15 or
gore.
something?
No, it's handheld and it's terrifying. Actually,
Oh,
it's
like the
very
Witches of Eastwick or whatever, and they run around with the handheld.
you mean the Blair
I,
Witch Project?
yeah, Blair Witch
Yeah,
Project of
yeah, yeah, of Eastwick. Yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah.
Eastwick Blair Witch of
Blair
those
Witches
people.
from
Those
Eastwick. Yeah,
people. Yeah,
that one. I saw
that
the
one.
Blair Witch,
Yeah,
and
it's
all I wanted to say was,
handheld.
"Would you wipe your nose? That was gross."
Yeah, so it's good. And then I've got a few things coming up that are parts of series, a lot of lit RPG and a few things like that. So yeah, that's some fun stuff. Actually, I'm fortunate. I've got a bunch of work coming up, so I'm happy
So,
with that.
can you tell us how long have you been narrating? For people that don't know you, when did you
Um,
start at this?
I started in 2016, so about 7.5 years, I guess, at this point.
So, an overnight success.
An
Okay.
overnight success, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been very, very fortunate in that time. I've been pretty busy. I don't take it for granted. It's
Okay, but you had no background coming in. Is that what I
no, I mean,
understand?
I was an actor and I had done voiceover for a long time. And so I at least had some idea of, how to work a microphone, how to tell a story. I think that's the whole thing is, how do you
Well,
tell a story? And then you have to make the adjustments and, you find coaches. Johnny, I think, was the first coach I had. And then I decided to vet my coaches after that.
well,
uh,
well, you and Johnny
so,
seem to share a background with some comedy. I mean,
yeah,
do I understand that right? You have some background in comedy. Maybe I
I
know it's not showing today, but I'm just saying that that's what I've heard
all
about you.
right, we are killing it. Yes, I did. I didn't do stand up, straight stand up like Johnny did, but I did a lot of comic work on stage. I've written some comedy, and I also was part of a duo for a little while in the '90s. Um, that's a whole other show. It was kind of fun, Phil and Al. But so yeah, I am used to comedy, and
Phil and I know I don't. I remember working with you, but I don't remember. True with all my friends, I just don't remember when we met, when we became friends. But I know at the New England Narrator Retreat, which I think you've been to
five
four or
times,
five times,
5 times, yeah,
5 times.
yeah.
And last year, Phil joined me. We did a session on humor in audiobooks. It was an hour-long thing, and it was really very good. I really like it when talents like Phil kind of take the next step up and help coach and share and do the things that they're strength. And Phil's want to do some comedy stuff, and he's truly funny. And that's being naturally funny is one thing, but being able to be funny in an audiobook and share the humor and play it is different.
Yeah.
It's more than just being funny. It's knowing how to play comedy, and Phil does. And it was really a wonderful thing. And I'm so delighted that you were able to do that. And I'm looking forward to something like that again this year. By the way, everybody's listening. The New England Narrator Retreat I just got the contract way too early. So but it's gonna be
They're
what is it,
looking for money.
October 14th and 19th, I think. So the openings, the registration is gonna start earlier than normal. The 14th, I think we're the 14th, the Columbus Day, I think it is. I'll double check it back to you. But if you just johnnyheller.com is where it's going to be. If you follow me on Facebook, if you've ever worked with me, there's a Johnny Heller Workshop alumni page that you can join. It's asked to join. You can come in from this if you want, but it's gonna happen soon, and it fills quickly. And I don't want more than 60, 70 people, because otherwise you lose the
charm.
small group the ethos there that we kind of like.
Yeah, yeah. It was fun. I appreciated that. It was really nice to have that discussion, and it was very engaging. There were a lot of people.
Oh, it's a wonderful time.
It was
So
really good talk. I enjoyed it.
You're a wonderful narrator. I really appreciate you and your work. I seriously do. And so when you started in 2016, how did you get your first book? What did you do? Do you remember?
I do. I got incredibly lucky. and I didn't know how lucky I was.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
I got incredibly lucky, and I
Wow.
didn't know how lucky I was until 2 years later. You know, the idea of you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
you know, and as corny as that sounds, it's the truth. I had spent a few months trying to get ready to do all of this, and initially I was going to do straight voiceovers. I had done commercials and things like that. And somebody had suggested, you know, you might want to do audiobooks. My sister's husband and I looked into it, blah blah blah. I got to it and did a whole bunch of research. And Lizzie, my wife, had said at a certain point, you know what, baby, I think it's time that you audition. I said, you know what, give me one more week, just one more week. I just feel like I need to get a few more ducks in a row. And then I sent out 3 auditions, and I actually ended up getting 4 books, which was weird because somebody
Oh,
reached out. I only took 2 of those. One of them was this book called Space Team, which was so generic a title, but the piece itself was really funny. And I heard this guy's voice so clearly. You know, when you do a book and you know, we always talk about connection. I had an instant connection to this. I hadn't even done any coaching yet. I got it. I felt like I got it. And he wrote me the next day, and this was 24 hours after I put up my shingle and decided to do this on ACX. And he said, you know, thank you for your audition for Space Team. I loved it. You got the exact tone I was looking for. It's only been auditioning for a couple of days, but I'm willing to give this to you now. Oh, by the way, I have another book that's already done and I'm writing a third one. I'd like the same narrator to do this if you don't mind. So I walked into that and you know, Liz and I were like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I got this. And of all the things I had auditioned for, that was the one that I said to Liz, and anybody who acts, anybody who does anything where you audition, you know, the rule is audition and forget it. Don't don't harp on it. Don't
yeah,
think about it because you get less things than you don't. But I had said to Liz, I really would like to get this. And I got it. And it turned out we did 16 books together, he and I. And it kind of built up to a point where, and that was where the royalty shares, I was doing it royalty share. It did so well that I was able to go full time as a
Oh,
result
wonderful.
almost entirely of that. And then at the same time, you know, you cross over into getting publisher work and then getting health care and all of that stuff. But I got really fortunate. Uh-oh, is that the dog? The dog
I
came
thought so, but it says I heard some noise. I thought the dog wanted in.
in? Maybe Joanna wants to join.
Yeah. What's going on here?
Joe?
No. No, she's
Anyway, that was a long answer for I got really lucky because in the independent realm, those books started doing well. And then other people started to reach out to me, you know,
like
hey,
I said, it's a long answer. I feel like doing this. Okay, Phil. Okay.
sorry, sorry. Well, we're out of time, but thank
Yeah,
you very
yeah,
much
thanks
for
for
having
joining
me,
us,
guys.
Phil,
I
yeah.
appreciate it.
So that is one of the it's one of the things that I tell new narrators. If you could ever find somebody like your author had already had a second book that was done,
Mhm.
and so if you ever find somebody, an author who is doing a series, that's your best chance if you're starting out with royalty share to have something that works.
Yeah,
Only partially just because that author has made a decision to invest in their craft,
you bet.
to write some extra books, to learn the craft, and they have to write a lot in order to be good at it, just like we need to narrate a lot to be good at this. That if they're doing that and they're on that path, you have a chance to make some money with those people that write a series. Somebody
Yeah,
that writes one book or it's their first book may turn out to be a literary genius, but odds are against them because most
right.
don't stick with it long enough and hone their craft, just like a lot of narrators after a little while. So at what point, so did you go full time after that? It took a
It
year,
took
10
about a
months?
year and a half to go full time. You know, things started to build up. He was insanely prolific. He would write 5 books a year. And he
Whoa.
was at the beginning, and you know, when you first start, I was so slow. I hadn't picked up a great pace yet. I had to finally catch up with him, and then I did. And the thing was, his stuff was so funny, and it just was easy. and he had it was just easy to follow, just to kind of get out of its way.
Did
And
you, Phil? Did you say that you that one of the books had been done already?
No, in other words, he had the second one written,
Okay,
and he
okay,
was
so yes,
writing a third. So I was like,
okay,
"Oh my God, I'm getting a
yeah, because
series right off the bat."
sometimes it's tricky to take over a series.
Oh God, no, 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 no.
That's
Yeah,
hard
that's
enough.
awful. That's
Yeah,
awful. Doing that, I've
yeah.
seen, unfortunately, really great narrators take over a series, and then they get dinged for it. I'm like,
Oh
are
yeah,
you,
yeah,
that's awful. You're,
yeah. I've
it's
taken
it's
them over
very
and had people take over it for me. So
Yeah,
neither one's
right.
pleasant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very difficult. So no, so I got very lucky, and in the meantime, I got other books and started to get publisher work and everything. But I, his stuff made me so happy to work that it was like like water. It was like drinking water.
Let's talk more about your career. What are you doing? I mean, so now you started doing this thing, the royalty shares,
Hmm.
and then you got into some of the per finished hour stuff with the publishers.
Right, right.
How did you find your way into that gig? So that folks
Um,
at home can hear out your story.
some of that was actually one of the speed dating things. It was Tantor, as is for many people. That's the way in. But actually, you know what? I should back up. The first publisher work I got was from Dreamscape, and that was a direct result of Natalie Nautis, who at APAC, I hadn't seen her for the whole day, and we had met at the narrators retreat. We hit it off and had a good time. And at the end of APAC, I saw her at a breakout session, and she said, "Phil, how you doing?" She said, "Have you met Eric Black?" I said, "Well, no, I haven't." She literally grabbed me by the wrist and said, "Come with me." She
Oh,
walked me over to Eric and said, "Eric, this is Phil. Phil does a lot of sci-fi. You guys just got a lot of sci-fi, didn't you?" And there were three other narrators there that she had introduced, and I got an introduction. And within 2 months, I got work from him.
that's
So
great.
that
Yeah,
was really, I was very grateful about that, because that's the kind of thing you hope someone will do for you, and then you want to be able to do that for someone else, because
that
you know
kind of
what that's
thing
like.
happens a lot in our industry.
It does.
I
It's the
can't
most
tell you how
generous.
many people I've brought to publishers, how many people brought me to their publishers or their authors,
Right.
and it's these introductions and the follow ups. That's what makes our industry, I think, so unique in the acting world.
I agree with you. It
Yeah.
is the most generous of any of the industries I've been in within show business, in any industry actually. It's really great.
Now, I'm
So
gonna mute 1 second because I have to sneeze. Hang
go
on.
do it.
You guys
Yeah.
carry on. Talk amongst
Actually,
yourselves.
I'd like to hear it though, but okay.
So here,
You
he
didn't
didn't
mute,
mute.
Johnny.
Ugh.
Now here's the thing, Phil. Did you say you met one of the publishers at
The
an
speed
event
dating.
at
Oh,
speed dating?
I met Eric Black at APAC,
Okay.
and then a year later, or during that year, I signed up for speed dating, and one of the people I reached out to afterwards. Honestly, I didn't get a lot from that, but I did get a connection with Brandy Lawrence at Tantor, and then they give you for me, and I found a lot of people at that time, they kind of give you that 4-hour nonfiction book to test you. How well do you play in the sandbox with everybody? And I guess I played well, because they started giving me work, and I've been working with them ever since. And then that spread out. You start reaching out, asking people, begging Johnny to introduce you to people, and he says maybe someday. And that's
It's
how it
for
went.
me, it's a money thing. How
Yeah,
much
yeah,
you willing to,
yeah. I'm
put
still
up
trying
for
to
it.
find what I really need to give you to get that.
Yeah,
Just tell me, man. Come on.
yeah. The bourbon's always good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that I've done. So,
And do you have a sense of how many audiobooks royalty share you've passed in your career?
yeah, actually I know, because there isn't that many. I've got 28 royalty share books that have sold, just like the end of the week. It'll be about 135,000 copies will have
Wow.
sold.
So
It's
there's
about
no money in royalty share. Is that what I
None
hear?
at all, none at all. But the lion's share of that comes from Barry Hutchison, the guy who did Space Team and Dan Deadman, and the one book, Sidekicks Initiative, which came this close to being a movie, and then
Oh wow.
the pandemic hit. It was actually at the point where several big names were attached to it, and they had a marketing budget, and they were talking about releasing a short animation. and he was discussing it with me, and the pandemic hit, and everything went aside for 2
Oh,
years.
yeah.
And, you know, once you lose momentum,
Right.
that's it. That's it. But you know, it was great working with him. So I
So
love it.
what genres were those of those original royalty
Space
shares?
Space Team was space opera comedy. Dan Dedman was science fiction noir comedy. All of his stuff has an element of the fantastic and the funny. So much so that when I do his books at this point, at a certain point, I started laughing so hard that we put in outtakes at the end of all these books. 90% of the outtakes are me absolutely losing my shit, you know, and just, I mean, complete. And then people would start to ask for it. Are you, because I was in a forum that's a group about Space Team and Hutchison, and they would go, oh, are you going to include, you know, the outtakes? I said, well, if it happens naturally, but it always happened naturally. Somebody even asked him, are you putting things in there to make Phil laugh? And at one point he said, yeah, I am. So he would put in these little landmines, and I'd read it and go, oh, you gotta be kidding me, man. How am I going to say this without laughing? So
do you do TikToks of you laughing? I mean,
I don't. I
it
haven't
seems
yet.
to be the thing, Phil.
Yeah, I haven't dived into TikTok, and I've been yelled at by my daughter who does book talk and TikTok, and I probably should. I
The
should.
Chinese are waiting for your
I
information.
know they want all my information. So I haven't, but I should. I should do that. So
I don't know if you should or not. I see it all the time. I see I don't see TikTok, but on Instagram,
yeah.
I see a lot of narrators I know, and they have these little things. I'm like, what in the hell is this? And I don't know. And I don't know. Would I hire you because I saw you lip syncing?
No,
to,
I'm not looking to get
Baarns-Audiobook
hired
company?
for it. In fact, in the beginning, I was afraid publishers might think, "Oh, Jesus, this guy's going to waste time." But it actually is not. It's this, you know, it ends up being this connection with the listeners. I found that people would talk to, and even people I didn't know in the forums, they would leave feedback on the books and say, I knew you would laugh at that point. So it's almost like a Hitchcock thing. You're waiting
Yeah.
for him to appear. Did I laugh? Did this make me break up? Because it made the listener break up, and they're waiting for the outtake at the end to see if that point made me laugh.
Hey,
And there's a connection.
I forgot that when I watched Vertigo the other night, the Philharmonic, I forgot that I didn't see Hitchcock. He must have been in there somewhere.
Yeah,
You know where he is?
in Vertigo, he is. It's way at the very beginning. I think he gets off a bus. I think
I
he
miss
gets
it. I was so enraptured by the whole
Oh
environment.
my God!
I
Yeah,
forgot to look at the thing. I have to go.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend another million. It costs a lot of money to go there to see Hitchcock.
it's worth it though. It's
Yeah, it was. It
Hitchcock,
was really
Johnny.
special, spectacular.
Hitchcock.
For those of you who don't know, I went with Joanna to go to the New York Philharmonic to watch Vertigo with the Philharmonic playing. It was pretty amazing. It was really actually stunning, just a stunning thing. But I was so mesmerized, I forgot to pay attention to where Alfred
Hitchcock,
pops in.
yeah.
Oh well.
So Phil, I've heard you're big in lit RPG, and now
I've been doing a lot lately.
okay, but before you do that, pretend somebody's brand new and they've never heard of that. How do you define lit RPG? Okay.
Fantasy or sci-fi filtered through a role-playing game. Like if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons or anything of that sort, there are statistics that are applied to all aspects of a person or of species. So you've got health points, you've got how much charisma, and it's all measured in numbers.
They're great.
And if you get a sword, the sword has a plus number. It does something. So the thing about it, and I'm still amazed that it is as prolific as it is. People love this stuff. You speak those numbers, you know, in an audiobook. You're reciting. I do one series for Tantor. The books are 35 hours long each. I've done 5 of them. There are tables of these powerful characters that go on for 15 pages. It's a half hour of reading these statistics. People either love it or they go past that. They were smart enough to put those in separate chapters.
Yes.
Finally, after third
the
book.
stats are boring as hell.
They're tough. But you know, Johnny, there are people who live for that. If you go on to Royal Road, you guys know what Royal Road is?
Explain it to us.
Okay, Royal Road is a website where fantasy writers or sci-fi writers, they publish things weekly. Like they'll put out a chapter, and you can get yourself you can log in and read things, and they give feedback. And several of the books I'm doing came from Royal Road. I can see ahead if I want to. I can go on there and go, oh well, it looks like I'm getting another book because it's on Royal Road. And I see people discuss it on Royal Road, and some people will actually use the stats to play. They'll create a game with those stats. So some people live for it. Other than that, it's fantasy or sci-fi.
It's wonderful. You work with Steve at Atheon, right?
Atheon, yeah. I work with Steve and Red.
Me too.
They're great.
I quite enjoy the books. There's so many characters and so much fun.
You have a great
time. And the only
time.
drag of it is when you talk about, here's my new health points, and I've done books where somebody else does that.
Is that right?
Yeah, a multicast thing, because I mean it's you have to put it in because I know it's part of the game. Like
it is. Yeah.
When you're playing a game, you need to be aware of your points, what you can do, and you need to, and you get awards and gems, and you got to distribute them among all your strength or health
That's
or
exactly
lives
right.
or whatever. And they're really kind of cool. I mean, I did one recently that I thought was just wonderful. It was a new genre for me, and I really like it.
Yeah, when it's done right, when it's done sparingly, those I actually kind of like seeing the progress. It's cultivation, it's progression. They have different names for some of these things, and there's subgenres, isekai, all those things. And some of them really are fascinating. I do one where the guy is a necromancer, and it's an illegal profession, so it makes it interesting. He's on the outside. Watching him progress, I loved the book. I actually do. I do one. I'm a Roomba. The lead character is a Roomba bot that has been summoned, thinking
a house vacuum.
It's a house vacuum. They thought in this tower of wizards, they summon what they think is a demon, and it ends up being this Roomba. and they think they're terrified of it because anything they do, they can't affect it. So they all run out. And
does it have a cat? Does it have a kitty cat on it?
There is a kitty cat, and there's a little girl who gets stuck, and she ends up worshiping the thing. It's actually really funny. I will say it's a bit long. Something like that shouldn't be 17 hours. But nonetheless, it's a whole, and it gave me an approach. It was something like, oh, okay, well, this has to be different. This guy is, it's this little vacuum that could. So I thought of it as SpongeBob, actually. Honestly, you've talked about that, Johnny, a lot about applying an actor or someone I used SpongeBob for it, just not the voice.
Yes.
I wasn't like, I'm ready. No, it was just the attitude of it. So it was fun. It's a fun book.
That's so cool. There's so many things you can do in that genre. It's just a world of fantasy and imagination. It's really quite and there's fight scenes that are wonderful.
Oh yeah.
It's got
hopefully they're wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there questions, Don, from the audience yet? Anybody ask us anything?
Really, people have made comments more than they've asked us anything.
If anybody has any questions for Phil, Don, or me, here we go. This is your chance.
So someone asked the question was about what's his name? Who's the?
That's right. I believe that's correct.
What,
Mike? Didn't he have the door in Vertigo slammed in his face when he tried to get on the bus? I think that's correct.
I'm gonna look again. I'll just pull it off on Netflix or something. I won't be able to watch it now without the Philharmonic behind me.
No, so people
I don't watch any movies. Huh?
But I have questions. Do you also play any of the video games, or are you into any of the gaming community to give you perspective? And do you think that helps?
Yeah, 100%. I used to play D&D. I don't have the time to get into groups and do that. I was a dungeon master for a while. I know Max Zener is into that he does that as a group. I used to be a dungeon master, and I've played the game. And I do play video games. And I do often prefer, I'm actually playing a game right now that's based on D&D.
What's D&D for people that don't know?
Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
And that's an old brand that's been around for like 40 years. And, again, you have your stats and your character progresses. When you do something, you get experience points, you get X amount of experience points, and you go up in level. You get more hit points, you get more abilities, and then you can fight more tough things. At its heart, it's actually a war game. But once you add all the fantasy to it or the sci-fi, I do a couple of them that are sci-fi. It's so like you said, Johnny, it's delightful. You can go into these worlds,
Yeah.
and if they're well written, it's fantastic. It's easy to connect. You get lost, and there's characters galore.
And
I
that makes
played sorry.
well. So I just want, so if somebody were not in that genre, is it really helpful for them to start playing some games to have a feel for it? And where should they start if they want to get in? So is this required, or is
No,
this something that, like, comedy has helped your whole career here?
I think
Right?
everything feeds into everything else. I don't think you need it. You can read a lit RPG. You can read a fantasy story without ever having played Dungeons and Dragons. Does it help? Yeah, sure it does, because you have an idea of the sense of progression. But it's still a story. At its bottom line, it's still a story. You're telling a tale. And that's really the bottom line of it. But the same thing with comedy. If you have previous comedy, Johnny is a funny man. He's done stand up. He gets it. When Johnny does a comedy book, or like one of my favorite things is noir. Johnny's done noir books and comedy books, and noir is a comedy noir. So that fed into his being able to do that so well. It certainly helped. It certainly helped.
So Rachel says, hi, any sense of how much work there is for women in lit RPG? I tend to think of it as a guy thing, but I know there are female characters in there. So
Andrea Parsnow, Andrea Ems. There are other people who are. It's expanding now. It did
Yes.
start, I think, as a guy thing, but many more women are doing it. Some of the
Yeah.
best in the business are women. So yeah,
There are
it's there.
tons of female heroines now.
Yeah.
You think it's kind of like, like the Hunger Games idea with Catnip Everdeen. So yeah, it's kind of like that, and there's a variation. So there's all these female heroes who are, sword wielding she warriors, and they're the lead in the story. And in other books I've done, sometimes they're multicast, and there's certainly there's plenty of work for women, I think, in the genre, in my experience in it.
Yeah. I've noticed in the last few years there's a lot of great badass women in these things. I agree.
Oh yeah,
And I love it because I don't know, I wasn't doing this 20 years ago, but I was reading and there was less of that. There is more of it now, and it's just much better balance. I love doing badass women.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
It's great.
now, but so are there more books where the lead or the narrator is a woman doing badass women, as opposed to you doing badass women?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm not being offered those. So
Yeah,
I
That's
don't know.
true.
They're not
I don't know
influencing me.
why.
I don't know why, yeah. So I imagine if you talk to Andrea Ems or Andrea Parsnow,
Phil
they,
Thron and Sheena of the Jungle. Yeah.
yes, that's right. Yes. Yeah, that'll sell none. So, so I imagine there are. It's just, yeah, the percentage is going to be still, unfortunately favoring men, but it's changing. There's no doubt it's changing.
Also, I would guess right now, if you're female and you get into it, you'll be on the leading edge of it rather than on the end. And you can do what Phil did. I mean, Phil, he planned this whole career, his whole acting career, to do the, no, he was at the right place at the right time with the right skill set, and he had done all the things before.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you're interested in this genre and you're female, this, in my mind, is a great time for you to do your homework, find the right people, meet the people, and get yourself established before you can get a bulkhead in there before a lot of other people. Is that close
Yeah.
from your?
I guess so. I don't want to speak from a place of not completely knowing, but I would imagine, I mean, that sounds right. If like the perception for some of the women who are on here right now is that it's more heavily weighted toward men, then perhaps there's a hesitancy for women to try to get this work. So you might be right. If women are jumping in and getting this work, I know Jen Lee was talking to me too about possibly doing some lit art. She might have even gotten one recently. So it certainly, you could be, on the leading edge of it and getting work that not everybody is getting yet.
What's that website you said that the
Royal Road.
royalroad.com.
royalroad.com.
Yeah. So there's a place that people will look. I mean, it is not. Here's the thing: lit RPG is not new right now. It's been around,
Right.
but there's still. I mean, because it's lit RPG, there's a million. Like Phil played a Roomba, and there's a million things going on.
Yeah.
It doesn't. So I mean, it's just there's so many opportunities. I think if it's clearly a male lead, then so be it. But there's tons of work for female leads in all kinds of genres.
Absolutely.
There are no that I'm aware of. There are no closed doors at all.
So Sarah asks, when narrating fantasy, do you feel the characters follow similar tropes or vocal placement? I mean, so she's saying all dwarves sound like X, while all elves sound like Y. I don't even know how you answer that.
Do you want me to answer that, Johnny, or do you want to?
All dwarves are Scots. Other than that,
it's funny because if you see discussions about it, it works both ways. A lot of people expect the dwarves to be, grumbly and perhaps have a Scottish accent or whatever, or sound like Richard Nixon, like I just did. And
I am not a dwarf.
I am not a dwarf. There's also, elves are expected to have a lighter tone and to sound British.
Yeah, all mine sound British.
But I think there's room for. It depends on the dialogue, and it depends on. It's like anything. It depends on the dialogue. If you're going to do ethnicity, for instance, and we've had lots of discussions about this, you don't apply a stereotype. However, sometimes there is some of that in the dialogue, and you can't lean away from it. Because it's there and you have to at least touch on it. So it kind of depends on the dialogue. I've heard and I've seen somebody took over. I didn't want to do another series with a particular writer in a lit RPG that I first had. And a new guy had taken it over. And somebody made the point of saying, this guy doesn't have a gruff voice for the dwarves. So some people are expecting something, but again, it's physicality. If a dwarf is spending his time or her time in a mountain, it tends to you probably got a rougher sound to them. But you know what? Take a chance and do something else. Do something that occurs to you if it fits, because it'll be interesting.
Yeah, your choices are only limited by what the author wrote,
right,
and what you perceive to be the truth of the character. In other words, if an elf guy speaks with a cadence that's clearly British, I think that's where you are. If the dwarf has a Gimli Scottish kind of sound,
right,
so be it. If the dwarf sounds rough and tough, so be it. But what if he doesn't?
Right.
Then that gruff voice doesn't work. That you're not. The fear is, and the problem is that you actors put a voice on as opposed to play the character as written.
Right. And what's the difference, Johnny? Please explain. Wait. Please explain the difference between playing a character and and applying a voice on it.
Applying a voice indicates that you're just giving here. Okay, I'm going to do Phil. So Phil has this voice. Well, it may not be related to the way, the cadence, the syntax, where Phil's from in the book, everything. To find the character, you need to understand. You need to have an image what the author wrote. I think it's cinematic. So you see the scenes it's written. You see the pictures. What does character Phil look like? Where's he from? What the words he speaks? Are they? Does it look like he's an intellectual, a well-studied, a college grad kind of guy, or is he gruff, a woodsman or something? What's it sound like? So you need to adjust. No one wants to hear just a different voice. We can all do voices.
Right.
A voice that isn't attached to the real character is not honest acting. It's bullshit. It's you pretending that you're acting. You're just playing cartoon characters.
Right.
And even cartoon characters, the reason you like certain ones is because it's what the character would sound like.
Mel Blanc was one of the great actors of the 20th century. I'm convinced of that.
Yes.
Mel Blanc, he was amazing. It wasn't just him doing voices, and nobody did voices better. But you hear the people behind them.
Yeah.
All these characters.
Hank Azaria and The Simpsons and stuff. I mean,
right.
Yeah, right. It's you have to determine who the character is, and then find the voice based on who the character is, not the other way around. That's what I mean.
An interesting side note about the dwarf thing. I do a thing called, I'm about to do the second book in a month. It's called Everybody Hates, what is it?
Phil Thron.
Everybody hates Phil Thron. Everybody hates Death Knights. And it's an isekai where a guy is transported to another realm and he finds himself becoming this Death Knight. And that's not what he wants. And everybody hates him. There are dwarves and they're all like Mexican guys. It's written that way. Like, hey, essay, you know, and it's written that way, and all these dwarves are like them. I thought, well, this is great. This is
Yeah.
fun. I'm, I'm better at that than a Scottish accent anyway. So, so
You have the look.
it is like Johnny said. It's the character first. What's there? What's in the book?
So somebody said, as a beginner, besides ACX, where do they look for book work, and where do they find video game work? Well, that's a different subject, but
Yeah,
where do they find book work?
Johnny?
Well, that's a big thing. And where do you find work? ACX is a place, but there's a lot of landmines there. You got to go. There are portals like Ahab Talent. There's, I think Elgin has one, JMM has one.
Ergo.
You know what you do? Look at it. I'll be basic. There's so many answers to this.
Yeah.
Go to as many narrator groups as you can, both on Facebook and live in person. I know, like out in LA, is the Audi's coming up in March. I know there's a few things going on. For example, Scott Brick and I have a Business of Audiobook workshop where there will be publishers from Podium and Penguin Random House and Scholastic and Harper, and you'll have a chance to ask them questions. They meet you there. Where narrators and publishers gather at mixers or get-togethers is a place. That can be expensive, but that's a place. Go to Audiophile Magazine and see who published a book that you like. Let's say there's a book that Phil did. So I'd really like to do a book like that. Who put it out? Let's say it says Athon. So you go find, so you'll find them online and see what they want for new narrators. Most publishers of audiobooks have a website and it tells you what they want from new narrators to contact them. So do what it says. Contact them. Word of mouth, introductions like Phil mentioned with Natalie. There's a million different things you can do. You know, a big thing that people are doing now is there are conferences, meetups in geographic locations, either the Midwest or specifically Wisconsin, or the East, specifically Pennsylvania or something. Writers conferences, and it could be sci-fi or lit RPG writers conference. They would welcome narrators to be there, and you can go there and you can meet people. These conferences is a chance to meet authors in this world. If you meet an author who likes you and you like them and you want to work together, that's a great way to start getting audiobook work and to build up a relationship.
I would mention the narrator's roadmap too. Karen Cummins has that.
Karen Cummins narrator roadmap.
There's a whole lot of information that's a really great resource.
Great place to start.
Karen's a great lady, and she put together a really great resource.
It's
if
wonderful.
You go to there, do a search for it, the narrator roadmap. That's worth seeking out.
And I'm going to put up another question here, but a crazy amount of business that these gentlemen keep talking about is they met somebody, they over time got on that person's radar screen, and then when something came up, they thought, oh, Phil would be right for this. Oh, Johnny would be right for this. But if they don't know you, so
Right.
then that you have no chance of being discovered. So there's a whole lot of about every business. The funny thing is, this has nothing to do with audiobooks. If I wanted to work at NASA, what would I have to do? Well, I have to go to the right schools. I need to get some education. Then I need to put myself in a position where somebody at NASA is going to know I'm interested in working for NASA. And the same thing as every other business, you have to meet people if you want to accelerate. You can do it without doing that. But boy, these guys are walking testaments to the fact that they are constantly doing the right thing in the people area, and they're amazing at the part of it, their craft. So they're doing both simultaneously, people development and professional development from a craft point of view, comedy in their background, taking classes. Heller is constantly amazing me at how many people he studies with over the year, where he'll be at a conference and he'll sit in the back and he's watching what they're doing and listening and taking notes and modifying his. He's already done this thousands of times, and he's still out there listening to other people and their point of view on it and integrating. And it feels the same way. He's gone to all these things and met people. And when you do that, combined with getting better at your craft, it does start falling into place. Any comments about that, gentlemen?
I want to add one thing. Is this when you as Don says, being an audiobook narrator is exactly the same as being an astronaut. It's the same. So, but
yes,
yeah,
that's a great paraphrase. Thank
you.
you.
That's what I got from that. Well, here's something you need to know. When you meet the people who can hire you, the authors and the publishers and everybody, understand that a lot of people want exactly what you want. Yeah. And while you may want it now,
right,
they may not need you. As Don said, they 2 months down the road said, "Oh, Phil Thron would be good for this. I met him 2 months ago. I didn't have anything. Now this is perfect." So understand that their schedule doesn't revolve around you, quite the other way around. And it's hard for you to remember that sometimes. It isn't always we have something for you now, but a good impression is a good impression. And I promise you it lasts. They remember. Just stay in touch. I see a note from Stacy Caroline about are the naughties happening out in LA? The naughties are the alternative party and after party for the audience. I'm not putting that together in LA. I haven't lived in LA since 91 or 2 or something. So I'm not familiar with all the bar spaces. And I did look a little bit, but I didn't want to put down money and make it all happen. I don't know. So I'm not running the naughties in LA. It's just more work than I want for myself. I probably won't even go to the audience. So I'm not gonna, no. So no, not that I know of.
So, Phil, we have a question from Timothy that says, when Barry changed genre, were you considered for the audiobooks?
No, I'll tell you why. And this is actually also a good thing to talk about. I still have a great relationship with Barry. I haven't done one of his books in a couple of years. He has another name he uses, J.D. Kirk, and he has written these insanely successful series of Scottish procedurals. And I could study every day with P.J. Oakland, a Scottish accent, and get it technically perfect. And I am never going to sound as good as Angus King. And that's just the fact. So Angus does these and should be doing them. As much as I miss working with Barry, I don't think I was really considered, and it never bothered me, except that the other books weren't coming in. I love those books, but I didn't think, oh, gee, I should have been. No, of course not. It's so Scottish. I mean, the whole thing, I'm going to do a Long Island or New York person way better than Angus King is going to do it, because that's where I grew up. So things that are in your cells, I think you're just better at. It's not that you can't. I just think you're better. And he was smart, I think, to do that as well. So,
and Phil, just to be clear, he didn't consider me either.
I know, and we talked about it, he and I.
Yeah,
I said,
I'm sure.
Don might be able to handle it, but
no.
but now he's studying to be an astronaut. So
right.
I think his energy is split.
Many people want me to do the Mars tour because they know I wouldn't be coming back.
I say you do the Mars bar tour.
Yeah. All right. So where do you see this going now? Is AI going to take over lit RPG?
No. I'm going to say it straight out, and I'm going to be bold about it. I think that AI is one of the lit RPG is one of the things that I don't know what'll happen 10 years from now, but you've got to do a lot of characters, and that's one of the things that AI does not do well. AI can't land a joke. AI can't read between the lines, and that's what we do. We read between the lines. We are human. Humans read between the lines. And I'm a little angry about that. I'm sorry, but I see lots of discussions about this. And I believe that there is, Johnny, you had said it, to keep AI at bay, just be better. Keep getting better at what you do. Yep. AI has never loved. AI has never had sex. AI doesn't know how to be funny in the interim between things. Those are the things that we do. And that's why I don't think I'm sure you can apply it to a lit RPG or a fantasy. You can have AI read the Lord of the Rings. Wouldn't you rather hear Andy Serkis do it, for Christ's sake? I mean, really, he's going to do a much better job. So I don't have an opinion about it.
Clearly.
Sorry about that, but I don't see that happening yet.
No, but people need to hear, you get to see some things. And then somebody's asking, so I don't know who Flaming French Fries is, but I love the title there.
I love the moniker.
Yeah. So what are the best workshops, acting courses to take? Do you recommend workshopping with groups or or one-on-one coaching first, or all at once maybe? Or what's your take on, we've discussed this before, but we need to hear your point of view on it, Phil.
Oh, my point. Oh,
yeah. Well,
because
first,
Johnny
and
was
then,
going to jump
and then
in.
I'll go to Johnny.
I think it's a question of preference. I started doing individual. Like I said, Johnny was the first person I worked with actually in the business as a.
And
as
look
a
how
coach.
that's turned out.
Like I said, in spite of that, I get work. And so, but also, Johnny, as it happened, was one of the first workshops. I went to the Splendiferous, and I've gone and I've worked with other coaches. Find, whatever you do, get a professional coach. Somebody has 5 books and hangs a shingle out and says, "Oh, my students." No, get somebody who like Johnny, or like Carol Monda, or Shannon Parks, or all these wonderful people. There are lots of wonderful coaches. And there are things like the Splendiferous Workshop or the Deanne things online, where people really know the business, and they know they'd be able to hear you and, point out things that you might want to work on, things that might help you to become better. And so you got at this point, I like one-on-one. I like, because usually I have specific issues that I want to work on. It's like, I can't get this. And so I can say to Johnny, you know what, I'm having trouble with this kind of thing. Let me read for you and tell me what you hear, that kind of thing. But it's also good to go to a group to hear what other people do. But it's preference. But find somebody professional. That's the thing. And again, you can find a lot of that and the roadmap. And I have no connection to Karen, to be honest with you. I'm not.
She's just wonderful.
She's just wonderful, and it's a very, very good resource. So you can find lists of professional people there, and ask other narrators. Find someone you connect with. You might, you might work with Johnny and go, he's a bit of a pain in the ass. I don't necessarily, or you may go, holy crap, this guy helped me so much. I want to continue working with him.
That's probably what'll happen.
That's probably what'll happen. Yes. I'm
Johnny,
going to owe you
thoughts
way
on
more
that?
drinks.
I echo everything Phil said. For some people, the one-on-one advantage is for that hour, however long the session is, it's just you.
Yep.
You have the coach's absolute attention and working with you. You may need a few. Some people have a system that you got to take 4 courses, whatever. Whatever. With me, you just take a session, and if you want to do more, we do more. One-on-one is great. The advantage of some of the group things is sometimes seeing someone else do something will turn on a light that won't happen any other place. When I do, Phil mentioned my Splendiferous workshops feature a bunch of different coaches. It's not just me. I don't want you to just learn. I want you to learn from a lot of people. Don's there, and Phil's going to start being there, and we have Scott Brick and Sean Pratt and Joel, from all the people we mentioned who are there, and you can say, well, I really like what Joel did when he worked with Phil. I'd like to work with Joel. That's sometimes, and also in a group thing, you see other people, you see that aha moment, and that's exciting in a group thing. There's another kind of workshop where you're working with a bunch of publishers. That's more while they call it a workshop, there's something of an audition there. So if you're not up to snuff, they'll remember you weren't great. And you only have one shot at a first impression. So be wary of that. Then there are like the New England Narrator Retreat features, I think I had 10 or 13 coaches last year, plus publishers, or maybe 10 coaches, something like that. So if there's a group that you can get in that features a lot of different coaches, that's pretty cool. So there's a chance. Whatever seems to answer your needs, better than I, if you prefer work one-on-one, you and Phil, that's it. Or you, Phil, Don, John, everybody, that's what you like, then you know that. So, but you do need to, I think, vet your coaches,
Yeah.
see what people say, how many books. I've done over 1,000 books.
Yeah.
I've seen coaches. I know there are coaches who've done 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe as many as 10 books and start coaching.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
If I've done one book and you've done none, I don't know that much more than you. And I just think you need to vet your coach. Uh-oh, someone's at my door.
Yeah. So by the way, so some
You
some
guys
of the
hear that?
yeah, I did. We did. So some of the deal on the when you're going back and forth, some of it depends on what resources you have, and if you can pull it off, you want to do both. It's just different. And I know my wife's constantly. Sometimes you'll go to a directed read where there's 5 or 6 people reading, and what you figure out is that somebody else will do something and you realize, ooh, that's what I do also. But if I were reading by myself, that issue might not come up. Maybe they read something in the romance genre and it triggers something in my head. The problem in the group setting is that Johnny's giving instructions for one person, and occasionally I'll see somebody generalize something and it didn't really apply to them. So you have to also, you're probably better off doing both. It's just which order do you do them? And nobody's going to do too many of these things. I do think people have unrealistic expectations that they're going to go to one coaching with Johnny and instantly have this all work. It's go to Johnny. He's going to have you do some things or recommend some things. Here's what I would work on. And then go back to him a month later, a week later, pick your time frame, and then say, okay, now I've worked on what you want or what you recommended. Then he'll refine it again. Because one of the things that happens with these great coaches, they're not going to tell you everything you could fix. If I go to him, he would look at me and he'd say, wow, I have 150 things I'd like to fix about Baarns, but I can't overwhelm him on one day with 150 things. He's going to pick my top 3 or 2 that I need to work on because, yeah, 150 things are bad, but I'm going to focus on the things that'll give him the most bang for the buck, and that's what he's
Just your
going to do.
personality. That's it.
Yeah. I need a personality transplant, he says, but that's in the works. We're working. I'm saving funds for that. So John, one last question here, Johnny, or Phil. How do you apply your stand-up background to narrating? I kind of know. I don't think so. I'm gonna by the way, you guys answer, but I'm gonna say this from an outsider point of view. They don't really apply it. They have that stuff that they have done so much, and when some author says something and it hits their funny bone, they know how to play it so that gets transmitted to you and me. And one of the things Johnny said earlier, there's a difference between being witty and having a comedic sense. So, and being able to read something in the comedy genre and have it come across as comedy. So I'm occasionally witty. I'm not a good comedian. I don't write jokes. It's a whole different, it's not the same. And so they both know this because they're into comedy. They understand the difference between a guy that can say something occasionally slightly witty and somebody who is truly a pro comedian, different animal. But anyway, Johnny,
I think for both of us, it's the same. I think it's recognizing what's humorous, and finding the humor in almost any situation. Because for Phil and I both, one of the reasons we're such good friends is because we find humor in almost every situation. Something is always going to be funny about something, and you need to find it. It's just that's human beings connect on that level all the time, even in the worst of times. There's that gallows humor. They got to find it and know it. As we draw to an end, I just want to remind people that if you're coming out to LA, March 3rd is the Scott Brick, Johnny Heller audiobook business workshop on March 3rd. Go to scottbrick.com to sign up. We have Penguin Random House, we have Harper, we have Scholastic, we have Podium, some other and some wonderful prizes and stuff. And then if you follow me, Phil can't come apparently, but early May, I'm gonna put together a New Orleans Splendiferous, mostly based on eating
and listening to music.
Yeah, kind of drinking. So Phil, thank you so very much for being our guest today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
I need to run because someone's at my door to go fix my closet, so I have to go.
All
But
right.
thanks everybody for listening. Please tell everybody about this.
And
Subscribe to Don Baarns.
yeah,
And keep doing this.
subscribe to the channel, and just make sure next week we have Carol Mana, and we're back on a regular Tuesday. And I appreciate you being here. And as always, we look forward to seeing you on the wires. Have a great day.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thank you.